Why is it that the single motherhood rate in Black America went from 25% to 75% over 50 years, where America did become less racist?
I mean, obviously, it's very important that, you have a father and a mother growing up. That's very crucial to childhood.
We agree.
Yes. But to get to my point, in 2020 with the George Floyd protests...
Riots
or protests, depends.
Were they riots or protests?
All right, well, we disagree on that, but...
Right, so when segregation ended, right, black people, or when slavery ended, actually, black people were just forced wherever, right? So they had nowhere to go. And then there was laws put in place to put them into prison, and after...
It's okay, no, what's your name? Guys, what's your name?
Jackson.
It takes a lot of courage to come up here.
Yeah, no,
but you take a deep breath. I'm not here to pick on you.
No,
I appreciate it. No, it's okay. I know that this can be very intimidating getting into a crowd like this. Let me make your argument. I'm going to make your argument for you, and I'm going to tell you why I think it's wrong. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the argument that is being made, that you want to make, is that there's legacies of injustice.
Yes.
And that those legacies impact one generation after the other. And when those things get handed down, you have what is a system or a systemic issue that isn't just isolated in 2024. So the argument that you're making is that what happened in 1954 does impact 2024 of decade after decade after decade. Let me tell you my response to that. Of course, there is some truth to that. However, every culture, every person in this audience can point to issues that families or generations prior had that we're able to overcome. So the question is, why is it that Black America is one of the only populations, that and Native American populations, that have not been able to overcome such evil, horrors, and injustices? Here's my perspective, and I want to hear what you have to say, is that the number one way to keep people out of poverty, lower the crime rate, and have a better society is whether or not you have a mom and a dad around. Would we agree that's an ideal? Yeah? Cool.
Yeah.
And so what happened in 1964 is that 25% of Black youth were raised by a single mom. Today, it's nearly 75%, about 70%. So that means that 1 in 4 Black kids will have a father around. Only 1 in 4. That's the number one issue happening in the country, and it's not because of systemic racism. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay, so I think I misjudged you at first. When you brought up the 1350 stat, I had just assumed that it was inherently eugenics based kind of, so, and that's where mine came from. I think we are on the same page that we know what the problem is, and that's what I mean.
Thank you for saying that, because I think we actually have a lot more in common in this country than the media would ever believe.
No, definitely, right? And what my point was, I was trying to say is, I don't think that we're doing enough to help these Black communities catch up, whereas they're underfunded and they're not, and they're over-policed, and there's just these factors that are contributing to, like you said, these single-parent households.
Yeah, so we're not going to agree on this. This is where we'll disagree, and that's okay. I have more of a view of Thomas Sowell on this, where he believes it's far more about culture, values, and worldview than stuff and over-policing. I believe there's not enough police in Black neighborhoods. You're going to disagree with that. Let's not even get into it, okay? But I think we can ask a question, and I want your opinion. Why is it that the single motherhood rate in Black America went from 25% to 75% over 50 years, where America did become less racist?
Why did it?
Yeah, so what caused Black America to go from one of the strongest nuclear family communities in the country to now the weakest by far?
I can't answer your question.
No, that's okay. No, that's great. And it's hard to get up and have these conversations. Here's my opinion. My opinion is that, yes, there was some social welfare that subsidized single motherhood, which means it's easier to get cash from the government if you say you are single than if you are married. I think we can agree that's stupid. That shouldn't happen, right? But I would love your perspective on this. Do you think in Black culture, getting married and staying with one woman for your entire life is elevated and celebrated?
No. Not at all.
I think that's the problem.
I think the problem stems from a lack of education. I think these communities don't have, I don't think a lot of them have the proper education or learning from previous to realize what will lead them to a more successful future. I think that if we funded more education in these systems, then these men wouldn't be so focused on stuff like
I think we can ask a question, and I want your opinion. Why is it that the single motherhood rate in Black America went from 25% to 75% over 50 years, where America did become less racist?
Why did it?
Yeah, so what caused Black America to go from one of the strongest nuclear family communities in the country to now the weakest by far?
I can't answer your question.
No, that's okay. No, that's great. And again, it's hard to get up and have these conversations. Here's my opinion. My opinion is that, yes, there was some social welfare that subsidized single motherhood, which means it's easier to get cash from the government if you say you are single than if you are married. I think we can agree that's stupid. That shouldn't happen, right? But I would love your perspective on this. Do you think in Black culture, getting married and staying with one woman for your entire life is elevated and celebrated?
No, not at all.
I think that's the problem.
I think the problem stems from a lack of education. I think these communities don't have. I don't think a lot of them have the proper education or learning from previous to realize what will lead them to a more successful future. I think that if we funded more education in these systems, then these men wouldn't be so focused on stuff like gang violence to get protection or money or
you have a
other
great
stuff like that, and then end up in prison and then end up with their child having a single mother.
Fair enough. So
sorry, I didn't argue.
No, it's great. So there's a lot of examples that there's some merit to your argument, but it's more about the quality of education than the amount of money we spend on it.
Yeah.
Such as, that's why I'm a big proponent of school choice and educational vouchers and opposing the teacher unions. But the core is this, is that the number one predictor for a kid of any skin color, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, is whether or not dad is around.
Right.
And I look as an outsider, albeit, at current Black culture, right? From the athletes to the rap music to the music, I don't see the nuclear family elevated, nor is it an internal Black cultural expectation. Now, I will ask some of the white individuals here in this audience, okay? If you guys got pregnant and all of a sudden you didn't even know who the father was around, how would your parents react? Not great, right? Yes? Unfortunately, in Black America, this is kind of accepted. Would you agree?
I can't say. I grew up around a lot of white people, so I can't say.
All right, okay. But it is a fact that it is accepted, right? So that's the problem. The problem is that it's a cultural norm that has then turned into the cycle of poverty. The cycle of poverty can break very quickly if fathers stayed with the women they impregnate.
But most of these fathers aren't just leaving. A large majority of these fathers are ending up in prison. Like,
okay,
this is
good point. Why do you go to prison?
Because you commit crimes. But the prison system has been targeted against minorities.
Again, we're not going to agree here,
right,
and that's okay.
Yeah.
There's actually under enforcement of the laws when it comes where there's, for example, only half of murders in Chicago get solved.
Right, but are
that
they all Black people though?
Almost all of them, yeah. Like 80,
well,
80.
If they're not solved, how do we know that they're Black people?
Well, because it's a Black victim in a Black neighborhood by a Black gang. So it's like you can assume at a great approximation that in the west side of Chicago,
50% of the murders in Chicago that go unsolved are all Black people.
Not all. No, I said 85%. But we don't know who the perp is. But again, if you have a Black victim at 2 a.m. in a Black neighborhood, it's reasonable to say that it was a Black on Black crime. 90% of murders after 2 a.m. in Chicago are Black on Black crimes. I'm from Chicago. Right. I happen to know it.
So,
right. But like half of all murders in Chicago are unsolved, that means half of all murderers are walking free. So we have an under enforcement of laws. We have the ladies here in this audience should know this. You know that there's over 600,000 rape kits in this country that have not even been opened or tested, which means that there are women who say that they've been raped and their kits are not even put in the system. There are probably hundreds of thousands of rapists that walk free in this country.
Yeah, no, our system is
no,
totally
what I'm saying
terrible.
Though, that's an under enforcement of laws though.
Yeah, because our system is terrible.
No, I know, but you said we have an over enforcement. I don't think we have enough people in jail.
You don't think we have enough people?
No, like I said, half of all murderers walk free. We don't even know who they are.
Okay, but I sure, whatever. But I'm talking. I don't think that I don't think that Black people are as more than 50% of exonerations from prison are black people. Like, a black person is more likely than any other race to be tried for a crime that they did not commit and then to be released from prison for a crime that they did not commit.
That's not totally true. Let's pretend that it is. It's because they're in front of the justice system more because of the high crime. But let's try to find some agreement.
I'm talking percentages of exonerations. Like, they're...
No, it's because they're in the system more, though. It's because you have more cases. But anyway, let's pretend that's true. Let's pretend the system's totally racist.
Actually, there's more white people in the system because white people make up like
no, for sure.
So you were just incorrect there, right? Like you're doing to me.
But they don't commit as many crimes.
Okay, so let's be cordial. Let's be cordial.
You're not being, so let's calm down a little bit, okay?
You're not being.
Am I being sweet to this guy?
Okay, but
all right. Let me ask you one question in closing, though. If you could say to Black America, here is more money, more stuff, more housing, or more fathers, which one would you choose?
More funding. I don't think, because fathers, I think that you need to solve the problem from the bottom. I don't think you can just plant a bunch of fathers in and they're going to stay there. Like you said, they're just going to, like in the culture, it's not part of the culture. So they would just leave.
It's a hypothetical, meaning if the fathers were to stay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. If, like, I just knew for 100% fact that they were going to stay.
Sure. We have agreement. So during the BLM stuff 4 years ago, did we hear anything from the national BLM leaders or anybody about black dads staying around with women they impregnate? Did anyone mention that?
No.
Why? It's the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is if you have a father around, less likely to commit crimes, more likely to graduate high school, more likely to get a job, less likely to be in poverty.
How do we get there? Like, this is what I'm like. How do we get there?
Well, the first of which is you must raise the standard of expectation, both internally and externally in the black community, that we're not going to put up with men, because we're both men, fleeing the women that they impregnate. Yeah. That we will say to men that flee the women that they impregnate, you're a loser, we're not going to tolerate you, we're not going to be friends with you, that you're the scum of the earth, that if you impregnate a woman and you just run away from them.
Most definitely.
Do we do that right now?
I don't think all men do. I think this is very common. What's the word I think this is very common in just masculine culture in general, is that men won't do that too.
I actually think it's the opposite of masculine culture too. I think it's not feminine, it's something else. No. Just fleeing from the difficult.
Well, no, but I'm saying in male circles, I feel like that is something that males would praise, or at least around my age range. That's something that happens.
So then I think we need to demand better. Thank you for coming up to the mic. I know it's not easy, and God bless you. Thank you so much.
Have a good day, sir.
I'm Andrew. All right.
You have a question, right? Or you do?
So I wanted to talk with you about, again, the 1350. So earlier I did chime in when you were talking with Jackson. You said 2020 with the George Floyd protests that nobody was talking about the nuclear family, which I think that they're separate issues.
Okay, but that's fine. But can you first acknowledge that no one was talking about the nuclear family?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, great. Why do you think that no one ever talks about the nuclear family at all publicly?
Maybe a lack of importance. And I mean, obviously, it's very important that, you have a father and a mother growing up. That's very crucial to childhood.
We agree.
Yes. But to get to my point, in 2020 with the George Floyd protests...
Riots
or protests, depends.
Were they riots or protests?
All right, well, we disagree on that, but to get to my point...
Sure.
To get to my point...
Were they mostly peaceful?
I believe so, yes.
Please let Andrew talk. It takes a lot of courage to come up. I'm going to defend you. Please continue.
No, it's okay. People can disagree, but I just like to get my point off. So I think police brutality and the nuclear family are two separate issues, okay? So I think that there's over-policing in black neighborhoods. Would you agree?
Not even close. Under-policing, actually. And don't take my word for it. Again, like half of all murders in Chicago aren't even solved. That's bad, right?
Okay, but that's Chicago, okay?
Well, but again, About only 60% in Baltimore are solved. It's across the country, but Chicago is America's third largest city. New York, LA, Chicago. Let's just pause right here. In order to solve murders, you need detectives, which are police officers. So we should agree that if you commit a murder, we should find out who it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So half of all murders are not solved. You can fact check me on this. Chicago murder solve rate 50%. You guys can all fact check me on this. So should we need more police then?
I never said I disagree about defunding the police.
No, but you said over-policed. I don't think we have enough. So show me an example. Show me a city where we have too many police and be specific.
Well, I can't come up with any specific examples.
Well, but you said that we're over-policed. You got to give me some specifics. It can't be an abstraction. You got to tell me the city in America that is over-policed, because I'd be interested to know about that city.
Well, like I said, I don't have any specific examples, but I'm going to
Because it doesn't exist, though.
I'm going to pivot really quick, if that's okay.
Before you pivot, I just want to just teach you something, Andrew. It's easy to say that you're over-policed. You got to back up the data. There's no incident in the country of any city that's over-policed. It does not exist. We have a police staffing shortage in this country. We don't have enough police, but please pivot.
Okay, to get back to my point, I think police brutality and the culture, black culture, is two separate things. I think police officers kneeling on someone's neck for 9 minutes is a completely separate incident.
What was George Floyd's cause of death?
Asphyxiation.
Actually, the original medical report by the Hennepin County Examiner said that it was a drug overdose. Did you know that?
But that was hired by the state. An independent coroner reported that it was asphyxiation.
You might be right, but if you guys love truth, you should go and dive into the Derek Chauvin court documents. There's a lot more to the George Floyd situation than anyone ever told you. It really is. And it's a great video. And you might be right, but there's so much more to that circumstance of George Floyd that was overdosing on drugs, right? That also, did you know that what Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd was actually in the police manual training? It was completely justified and was trained by his superiors to do. Now, let me ask you a question. How many unarmed black people, on average, are killed by police a year?
Well, I'd have to look up that statistic.
Guess.
Probably over 50%.
Yeah, it's 15 people a year. 15. And that's not my number. That's the Washington Post that came up with it and did a national crime survey. And they even were generous and they said unarmed, meaning you had a weapon nearby or you had a knife that you dropped. So you're talking about police brutality for an incident that happens 15 times a year in a country of 350 million people.
Well, how come... My question to you then, how come you see it so often on social media?
That's a good question, Andrew, because you're being propagandized. You're being brainwashed is the name of this tour. And I'm here to tell you that you see it, so you actually don't see it as often as you think. This is emotional targeted videoing to have you think that something exists when it doesn't. We look at the data like, oh, it's 15 times a year, and it's even lower than that. But do you know what does happen a lot every single year? Is that there's over 100,000 drug overdoses every single year. We don't talk about that. We should. We should. I totally agree, right? But we have this whole thing about police brutality, and no one can ever give me examples where there's too many police, and that's okay. I'm not just picking on you. Just in general, it's easy to get caught up in the abstractions. It's easy to get caught up in the parade and in all the bedlam. But when you dive into it, you realize that it's all brainwashing and it's propaganda.
I guess what I would say in response to that is when you do your own independent research, you can find data to skew in any direction you want it to.
But it's the Washington Post. I'm not just making this stuff up. This is the left. I'm using left-wing sources here. This is not Breitbart.com or Gateway Pundit or the Charlie Kirk Show or the Daily Wire, right? This is the left-wing sources, and I'm not cherry picking because you said police brutality. So then I pinpoint, okay, how many black people are then killed unarmed by police every year? Boom, that's the number. In a population, by the way, where there's tens of millions of black Americans, it's an insignificant sum. And you know that more kids are killed in urban violence going to school or walking to the playground than blacks are killed by police? We don't talk about that as much. The question then is why? This is my belief, is that Black America is so abused by the current mainstream media, it's abused by the Democrat Party, and they don't want black Americans to think freely or independently, that they have been used as pawns by the Democrat Party for the last 60 years. That's exactly what is happening right now, and I pray people are starting to wake up. A final thought, Andrew?
I guess I don't really have anything.
That's okay. I encourage you to do this. Fact check me later. Find out what the unsolved murder rate is in Chicago. See if Charlie Kirk was right. Look at the Washington Post crime database and find out, was it really 15 unarmed blacks that were killed by police year by year? Sometimes as low as 8, sometimes it's 20, so the average is about 15, okay? Go and look at The Biggest Lie Ever Told, the George Floyd documentary. Go look at the original Hennepin County medical. Don't just take my word for it. Do that research. And in that research, if you're like, oh, dang, I was lied, use that as what we call taking the red pill. And you'll see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
100%.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Can I shake your hand?
Yeah, God bless, man. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Give it up for Andrew. That's not easy to do.
That's very interesting. One listening to Charlie Kirk debating these college students in an unsystemic racism. And of course, just like how Charlie says that let's not just look at it in a sense from the outside, but then let's look at in a sense the root cause of some of these things. And of course, people in a sense could be accused of certain things, but then if you do not look at in a sense how some of those things in a sense comes about, then you are truly going to misinterpret or get brainwashed by some of these things. Now, just like how we are talking about, Charlie was talking about the single motherhood, and then the money that has been spent in a sense in these processes. Of course, in trying to do some of these things, they thought that when they subsidize this single motherhood, it is going to help to fix some certain problems, you understand, in the society. But then, just like how Charlie says, of course, this number moved from 25% to now 70%. So if you look at in a sense from these numbers, you would realize that what the government or the federal government are not doing themselves in a sense good in trying to subsidize this single motherhood. I have been an opinion by saying that subsidizing this single motherhood is not a good idea, and it is something that needs to be abolished. Before we will go on to talk about George Floyd, in a sense, how he was killed, or we could talk about in a sense the riot, or we could call it in a sense a protest. That is the reason why we have to look at the root cause of it. The root cause of it is what? There is no dad at home. Dads are not at home. So there is a likely possibility that a black child in a sense could grow and can end up in a sense in a gang. And that's why I see Charlie is saying that what out of 4 black children in a sense, you could see that it's only one that will have a dad. And then if you have a dad, there's a likely possibility that what that you might go to college, you might finish, get a job, and may not get involved in some of these gang group, gang shooting, and all those things. And then when you find yourself in this kind of situation, that will result for the person to be end up in a sense into some of these drugs, or at the end of the day find himself in the prison. You understand? And then that's the reason why he was saying that, of course, we don't have to talk about in a sense the manner in which in a sense George Floyd in a sense was murdered, but then let's look at the root cause of it. The root cause of it is this single motherhood. And then people are now getting addicted to this drug overdose, and then in the process in a sense landed a lot of people in a sense in the prison. I'm not necessarily saying that there are people or black people in a sense are being targeted, or in black communities there's over policing. There is no over policing. They are just trying to make sure that there is law and order in our society, and not basically saying that they are being targeted or there is actually in a sense racism. But then we have to fix some of these problems, because it will not be a good thing for you as a man or me as a man to go about sleeping with women, getting them pregnant, and refuse to take responsibilities. You have to take a responsibility as a father, or you have to take a responsibility as a man. You being in a sense a man is not basically about you impregnating in a sense people, but it's about what taking responsibility. That's what makes you, in a sense, a man. But then we have seen a situation whereby people are just getting people, in a sense, pregnant, believing that government are going to provide social programs for the women. And then at the end of the day, some of these women, they cannot do it alone. They cannot do it by themselves. And then some of these men, they will do that and sometimes even end up, in a sense, in the prison. So imagine a child and the mother will be struggling to make sure she raises this child, and maybe probably before the father will come out of the prison, maybe probably is 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or 20. So what do you think will happen to the life of the child? The father was not there when the child was growing. You understand? Those kind of a thing. And then when this child, in a sense, it is young, which means that's the time that the parents are supposed to be together to train the child in the way of the Lord, so that when he grows, those things that they are going to teach the child, he is not going to want to depart from them. But then, since the father is not there, it's only the mother. And then remember, this mother will have to go somewhere, find a job, do something in order to be able to take care of herself and then also the child. And you know, they can't be able to do it, in a sense, by themselves. So at that point in time, it means that there are some certain things that what the mother could have done, but she wouldn't be able to do it. So imagine the father is there taking his responsibilities. Probably that could have been able to like help to shape the life of the child. But then since the child, in a sense, have end up, in a sense, missing his father, and then could end up in the gang, or could end up, in a sense, in the prison. So that is why Charlie is saying that what there should be more fathers, in a sense, at home. And to me, I would say that the government should stop funding some of these single mothers, because in the process they end up, in a sense, aiding the process and then making the number to increase, because some of these men could feel like if we get them pregnant, the government are going to step in. So the government should stop the funding. Let's see how it would affect the society. Well, I know the issue of this racism, people always feels that the black are always targeted, but then we have to be responsible and be very intentional of every action we take, knowing fully well that in every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Of course, I know that a lot of you have an opinion concerning this and precisely about George Floyd's death. So I want to see that at the comment section, and may God bless you as you do so. So this is the end of my video. If you like my reaction, you should like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any video you want me to react to, don't forget to drop it at the comment section and I'm going to check it out. So you remain blessed, and I see you in my next video. Goodbye.